All right, you delinquents. You're listening to goddamn Gamecube, the best goddamn video game podcast there is. I am one of your hosts. I'm Beppe.
This is Greg.
I'm here with Greg and our two guests for this series, Nick and Josh. You've heard their voices before.
Hello, hello.
Yo, what up?
And this, I mean, feels like a while, but for our listeners, it's only going to have been 1 week.
That's true.
The flow of time is convoluted.
The flow of time for our listeners is only 7 days at a time.
It's crazy. Well, we're here. We're all very passionate about the new retrospective that we're doing here tonight. We are doing the Souls series, FromSoft, their most recent third-person action RPGs. We have quite a lot to say, so bear with us. But I think this is a series that means a lot to all of us. We all feel very strongly about it. Our opinions don't perfectly align, but in a lot of ways they do. And we are going to be starting with the one that no one played.
Which is Kingsfield, no.
Well, the one that everybody tries to say they played, didn't actually play.
Because everybody watched The Godfather, but no one has.
Yeah, it's the one that you flout for cred.
Mm-hmm.
It's Demon Souls. It is Demon 'S Souls.
Right. We actually pronounced it wrong. It's Demons.
I just say Demon. It's a pain in
it
the
really
ass.
Is that the first discussion topic? It has a bad title.
The name is the stupid.
The name is really stupid.
I mean,
awful.
whatever. I mean, not a lot of them have great titles, but whatever. Okay, so let's start off. Only Greg and I have played this game all the way through. Nick has played a little bit of it.
Maybe 3 or 4
Josh
hours.
hasn't played it at all, but
I've seen a lot of videos.
Yeah, I mean, it shares a lot. It has a lot of DNA with the other games in the series. But yeah, this game was not very popular at the time, especially in Japan. It just seemed to them to be another generic kind of game. It did a lot better in the US, surprisingly, which is weird. Atlas, famous for Persona and all the other
Shimigami and all that
shit. Yeah.
Hey, whoa. Them's fighting words.
Yeah, well, you know what I mean. They were the publisher, which is
I forgot about that.
Because
didn't
the only one they
Bandai
did.
come after?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the only one they did. This project was originally Miyazaki, the brain behind all these games. He came in at a later date when this game was already being developed. And it was considered DOA. It was going to be a failure.
Okay.
And they were like, here, you want to work on this? And he said, yeah, sure. And there was evidently there was not a lot of pressure because everyone already thought that it was going to be a failure. And he's like, yeah, so I didn't really have a ton of pressure on me because I could just do whatever I wanted. And I could implement all these weird ideas. And I can just... it's interesting how it was very spontaneous how this whole fucking mega franchise came to
started.
be.
I mean, I was gonna say I'm not surprised because I made a joke about Kingsfield in the first 30 seconds, but nobody played those. It sold horribly. I beat a couple of them, but I didn't even know they existed until after Souls came out.
Right.
So I mean, I guess if in a business sense, you shouldn't be surprised that Demon Souls, barely got off the ground.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's also, there's not a lot about any of these games. The Miyazaki, the creator, famously is very elusive. He refuses to appear on camera. His interviews are very few and far between. So it's tough to find out things about the philosophy behind these games and the development process. But I was able to discern the first Demon Souls was very inspired by Kingsfield. Not that it plays the same, but it's the same vibe. It was also inspired by Shadow Tower, which I saw on your shelf back there.
Yeah, I do own them all.
FromSoft game, yeah.
I do.
And he said Oblivion was another inspiration.
Oh,
which is very
the only good Bethesda game.
But I mean, I was like, okay, that's why I gravitated towards it.
Yeah.
But he said, I think a story that is kind of a meme at this point, it's making the rounds a lot, is that the cooperative experience in these games was inspired by when he and a bunch of other people were stuck on a hill, like on an icy road.
In real life?
In real life.
Okay.
And what happened was everyone sort of collaborated on pushing everyone's cars up the hill. And he said, when you get up to the top, you have to keep moving. Like, you can't go back and thank everyone who helped you, and so on and so on. So it becomes this sort of pay it forward experience.
This guy's fucking bizarre.
Where everyone is helping each other, but you don't necessarily, like, when you get co-op help in one of these games, you rarely see the same person.
You do it and
again.
it's done.
Yeah. So that's kind of cool. It's like a real life experience where it's just kind of tangential.
That's so interesting. Well, he's right. I mean, if you push a car up a hill,
you can't stop.
You go off and then you're done. What a weird influence for
Isn't
a game.
that interesting?
I feel like all of these games, I don't want to go too far off topic, but you know, the Pokemon guy, imagine bugs crawling back and forth over a link cable. Miyazaki is like, I pushed a car up an icy hill and I made Dark Souls.
That too. Yeah.
Jesus.
I mean, I think a lot of the concepts that are intrinsic to this series come from this game originally. He initially had this inspiration for a very oppressive, hostile environment with consequences to your actions that just ripples throughout every game to varying extents. There's some that play a little more serious than others, but that's kind of his philosophy. And a lot of people mistake that for being like he wants to be punishing, but it's not. It's really... I don't know. It's really just more of like getting you invested in the world and wanting to take it seriously. We talked a little bit about this on our difficulty podcast.
Yeah, and the thing about Dark Souls, which is interesting, even in Kingsfield, because I think I'm the only one on the panel who played them and beat them. There is an interesting similarity in Kingsfield where there are friendly NPCs and merchants that will sell you stuff, and there are kind of towns, but kind of like Demon Souls, where you know you have your central hub where there are some friendly characters, but everyone in the game is kind of down and out, and you're kind of down in their luck. Yeah. Everyone is sad. Like no one. It's a sad game and it kind of a miserable world to live in.
Well, that's something that I really like about these games. I like the atmosphere. I like how fucking miserable everyone is. Yeah. I relate to it so hard. Like even like the way that people sit down and stand and speak. It's all like the visual language is very consistently miserable. Yeah. And maybe I can see that being off-putting to a lot of people, but I really like it.
It's very much that just like enough of life kind of vibe to it that like I think pretty much
oh my God.
I think that's why it strikes so well with that generation in particular.
but that I mean, thinking about it now is too, it just makes it so much better when you overcome it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not to say that these games are like one tone either, or Demon Souls.
Oh yeah,
you always have like the one character who believes in you. Like you have you have like in Dark Souls the Aishwamai guy or whatever.
Yeah,
he's
a friend.
Awesome. He's having a good time.
In this game, you have Stockpile Thomas.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a nice guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is implemented to varying extents. I think every time they make one of these games, the concept of fairness comes up again. And he gets asked this in every interview, like, is it your intention to make this game really hard? And he says no. Something I did find interesting in the development of this game is that they considered permadeath. Isn't that insane? Like, and it was like it must have been very early concept.
Yeah,
because no relic of it remains in the final game. But that's like to consider how hard he's playing here. Like that's like an idea. Because I mean, this was the first one. He was messing around with a lot of concepts. But the last thing I have here in the development angle is that the emphasis was he didn't have like a specific market in mind for who are we trying to, like, RPG fans, like, you know, action fans. And I think that's really interesting because it appeals that we all have very different tastes in terms of what kind of games we like to play, and we all love this series. So I think it worked perfectly.
Yeah.
Like it has a lot of different things going.
I mean, from a marketing standpoint, when you just said that to me, I'm like, oh God, no wonder everybody thought this was dead on arrival.
I mean,
jeez,
if anyone comes up to me and says, I don't know what market this game is for, I don't know what market this product is for, I'm like, no, delete.
Seriously.
Yeah. No, absolutely
I would
not.
like I would never say yes to anything where someone's like, dude, I'm not really sure what it's gonna be. I don't know. I'm out. I'm all done.
Yeah, right. I'm out. Sorry.
But I mean, going back to like what this game is or what the influences are, it does sort of pay an homage to Zelda games. Those
a bit,
where I feel like Dark Souls has really consumed action RPGs for it's almost a decade now, or more than that now. It's more than a decade because we're in 2020.
11 years.
You start to lose sight of it actually plays very similarly to if you leveled up in a Zelda game.
Yeah.
That's really the only comparison I can make.
The The lock-on combat is a big thing.
It's the same.
In the later Souls games, you start to get the Zelda, the area name.
The area names
floats
pop
up in
up
the same
when
way.
you,
Yep.
It's a similar vibe. I described this to a coworker a long time ago as like this grown-up Zelda, essentially. There's a little bit more going on, so that's a good dovetail into some of the features of these games that I was gonna bring up. The character creation is never great. Visually, never great. I like there's a lot of build options, the classes. That's always pretty diverse. Some choices more viable than others. In terms of your starting item and whatnot, it's like there's some ones that are objectively better than others.
Right. The gift.
In terms of the combat, also the stamina meter is huge. Not a lot of games did that before this one.
Yeah, where like, if you run out of stamina, you cannot commit any action.
Yeah.
Like rather than just jogging around.
Yeah, and it depending on what you have, like if your shield is raised, it'll regain slower.
Right.
If you're blocking or deflecting or whatever, it's all tied into your stamina, which you can level up in all these games. But that is very unique to this series. I mean, everyone's doing it now, but
right.
Was it prior to this series? Was it ever really
I can't think of a
thing
game
having
before
stamina bars? Like I personally can't think of one.
I
Prior.
can't think of a game where a stamina bar, if you have none, you cannot commit any action.
Right, you can do anything. I can't think of
Obviously,
anything like that.
there are magic meters and power up meters and all that stuff.
Yeah, because
Oblivion did have a stamina meter, but it wasn't nearly as
you're right.
serious. So maybe that's where
in Oblivion stamina meter, if you have 0, you can still swing, right? You just don't do anything. Is that right?
I forgot.
Or you're I mean, the numbers in that game are fucked up anyway.
Yeah,
because I remember jumping.
You're right.
into
It's Oblivion. So
yeah. So I mean, there's your influence right there.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. New Game Plus is implemented immediately in this game, and for all of them, it just kind of continues indefinitely. I'm curious about how far people have gone in these games, like New Game Plus 200 or something.
Nick, how far did you get in Bloodborne? Really quick. New game.
+4.
New game plus 4.
Okay.
Okay. Hell.
Solid.
We'll get there.
Yeah,
Very
we'll get
nice.
there.
Something else I'd like to talk about that is introduced in this game is the soul economy.
Okay,
and
go ahead.
how you earn souls by killing enemies, or using items that give you souls, and you spend them in shops, or you level up with them.
Which I always thought was very unique.
It's interesting that they're entangled in that way.
Yeah. I can't think of many games where the EXP you get is expendable as currency.
The only game that I've
Go
played
ahead.
is the Banner Saga. Does the same thing.
But that's new, right?
It's much newer than Souls. Yeah.
Okay.
I can't think of
it's
another
the
game.
only game I can think of.
I can only think of Metro where you shoot money. But that's not...
That's true.
in the first one.
But that's another thing, is that in, I think, all of these games, it varies a little bit game to game, but if you die, you lose all your souls, but you have one chance to regain them if you go back and you find your bloodstain, which is where you died, and you go and pick it up and you get your souls and whatever back.
I was going to say, like, people call like Demon Souls or the Dark Souls franchise maybe oppressive and hard, but we've all played games where actually dying is more oppressive. In Diablo, like, you lost everything.
You could still go back and
you
get
can
the
go back
items,
and get it, but like, you lost your entire inventory.
Right.
Dude, I mean, I won't go down this rabbit hole. RuneScape is way more, there's a bigger penalty in that game.
RuneScape death is awful.
That's a kid's game,
It's
man.
terrible.
I know.
Never expected that to
Didn't
come
expect
up.
that one. But I mean, we won't go too far on this, but you losing your EXP, which is also your money, it's unique, but there are games with more oppressive death penalties than
Yeah,
Demon Souls.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, also, we should say that you lose maximum HP as well.
Yeah, I was going to get into that as well.
Yeah,
In this
go
game, in a lot of these games, I think Sekiro is the only one that doesn't have this, is there are 2 states that a player can be in. And in this game, it is the soul form and the human form. And when you are in soul form, you have a lot less HP to work with. But this is mitigated a little bit by rings and stuff like that, and miracles and all that shit. But interesting to have. Some games do it better than others, where there's a trade-off where you can, if you're in human form, you're more susceptible to being invaded.
Yep.
So you have extra health, but I think in Dark Souls 1 they don't do that, because it doesn't matter if you're one or the other.
What do you mean?
So for instance, in this game, this is soul form is the version of hollowing in Demon Souls. You have less health when you're in soul form,
Yeah.
but you won't get invaded.
Yep.
If you're in human form, you do have more health, but you will get invaded. So it's a little trade-off.
Right. Also, we'll go into Dark Souls 1 much later, but you also can only summon one human in Dark Souls to play co-op.
Yeah.
You have to be human.
Exactly.
Also, kind of an interesting tidbit, I believe in Demon Souls, when you're in soul form, your sound effects of your running also are muted. Right?
Yes.
Oh, that's super interesting.
Especially in
Yeah.
the Nexus, the hub of this game. There's this floor that has all the golden circles on it. If you walk on it, there is no sound when you're in soul form, but when you're human, it makes these little like resonations.
Yeah.
I think that's cool.
That's
It's a
interesting.
nice little subtle thing.
These games are very attentive to detail. Very like almost nauseatingly so.
Right.
But I was going to talk a little bit about this is the only game I believe in the series that does world tendency.
Oh yeah, it's
remember
very
that?
confusing.
It's really confusing.
Go ahead.
I don't think anyone would understand it if you didn't look it up. Certain actions that you take will lead to the world becoming pure black or pure white tendency. If you die a lot, you will go towards black. And what that means is that enemies get harder, but you get more valuable items and drops. You get more souls. You get more everything. And the opposite is true. When you kill a boss or you perform certain, I think, quest lines, it goes to pure white, and you you get less cool shit, but it makes it easier.
Right, and also certain things in levels open up too when world tendency, or I should say certain quests or level design opens up in different ways depending on what the world tendency is.
Yeah.
And when I played this game, Demon's Souls, for the first time, I didn't even know what world tendency meant.
Exactly.
I didn't get
you
it
see
at
the
all.
map, but it's like I don't know.
I
what
have
this
no
is.
idea what it means.
But like, yeah, you're right. Certain quest lines, like the Mephistopheles quest line, doesn't open up unless you're in black. I believe.
Exactly.
And you start to see the fucking primeval demons. Did you ever see one of those?
No.
It's this gigantic, like, disgusting leech slug creature. And it can't do anything to hurt you really, but they just start showing up when you're getting close to black world tendency.
You know what's interesting? Bloodborne does this a little bit.
I was just gonna say,
Yeah, when you have what's that currency?
Insight.
Yeah.
Insight is in a way similar, but it's a tangible item that you can have.
This is the only game that doesn't have a humanity analog, I believe.
Yeah.
We'll get into that later. But that's another altered state thing.
I was gonna say Sekiro kind of has a world tendency thing, just
Are
not
you-
as
Are you talking Dragon Rot?
with Dragon Rot.
Okay,
kind of,
Sort of.
It's not quite as intense.
It doesn't do as much as you would
but it does
think.
alter the world a little bit. The
little
NPCs
bit,
and such. Yeah,
But I guess I think the point that like Beppe's trying to make here is world tendency was also very ambiguous, and I had no fucking idea. Like,
That's
what was
very
it.
There are certain
Like-
things in this. It gets better as it goes along. I feel that are kind of vacuous and not explained too well.
Demon Souls is very obtuse.
Yeah. As it goes on, it gets a little bit more user friendly, I guess you'd say. The one thing that is a constant that I'd like to address is how cryptic the lore is.
Yeah.
The stories themselves are very bare bones. It's a very simple concept usually, but a lot of the storytelling is done through engaging with NPCs and looking at item descriptions, which is very, for its time anyway, I think it was very unique to tell a story that way.
Yeah, I was gonna say like with Kingsfield, it was also very similar.
Yeah.
Where the amount of people you would talk to and dialogue was so few and far between. You had to gather it from like signs.
Yeah.
And literally reading signs in the world. The few conversations you have, kind of, you have to almost understand it through like the monsters you're fighting and why you're doing it. You almost have to, I don't know what the right word is. You have to almost infer what's going on, or you're making you're making the game and world progress in the story, which is interesting.
And it varies game to game how explicit it is.
Yeah.
But it's, as far as this one goes, it kind of sets the standard of.
Yeah.
The last thing that I was going to say that is pretty unique to the gameplay of this is the iframes when you're rolling. Because if you're rolling, it's pretty constant. Like in all these games, you roll to get through attacks, and even like the animations are not gonna, like, you'll see a sword like clip through you, but
it doesn't do anything.
There's no other way to do it, I don't think.
Right.
So that is something that I don't remember seeing until this game.
Oh, you're talking like in terms of action games that we've played.
Yeah,
where
like iframes.
Yeah, iframes. If you roll through an attack, you get out of the. That's so interesting because I can only think of some games, but in terms of it's hard. Like Gears of War, you can dive roll, but I'm not sure what it actually does. Or can you? Or by that I mean, if something hits you, but because you're rolling, does it do nothing?
Right.
Zelda, a little bit.
I was going to ask
if you
Ocarina
roll
of Time
straight
does
into it does not reliable and can only roll forward.
Yeah.
So meh. Also,
of.
I mean, the joke I always make is if you can Mega Man roll in a game, it's better.
I was going to say, Mega Man roll. Isn't
Mega
that
Man
one of
Legend,
them?
but I
Iconic.
don't believe you can iframe your way through Mega Man rolls either, which is
Right.
also interesting.
Yeah, very much so. I'd like to move into the sandbox of this game a little bit. There's some things that are unique that some of the other games don't have. This game does something that is improved upon later. I want to talk about the healing a little bit. In this game, you collect moongrass,
Yeah.
which is healing, and you can pretty much just stock up on that like endlessly.
Consumable healing items.
That's your main thing, and this I think improves and then regresses as the series
Yeah.
goes on. They seem to be struggling with which is better, even though we all know that Estus is the best system ever.
Yeah, I was gonna say the few hours I spent with Demon Souls, man, I did not like the Moongrass system.
Yeah,
all.
I agree. Like, so at the beginning of the game, like you're not sure whether you should be conserving this stuff
Right.
because it's a consumable healing item. These games are brutal as it is.
Yeah.
Later on, you start to kind of figure out certain enemies will drop it every time, so you start grinding it.
Yeah.
And then I don't know why they went back to it in Bloodborne.
I was gonna make the same comparison. I thought it was
And Dark
better
Souls
done.
2.
in Dark Souls 2.
I thought it was better done in Bloodborne and Dark Souls 2. But then again, I have very limited experience with Demon Souls.
Yeah.
All I know is I did not like it.
At least with Bloodborne too. I mean, we'll go into it later, but you had other mechanics that kind of compensated for that.
Sure,
like you
sure.
had the like health regen, all that jazz.
Yeah.
I mean, so here's what I have to say about that. There is some interesting elements of that where you have, so the way this game is set up is that you have 5 different worlds, areas, whatever, that you go to, and each of them, besides the swamp, has a reason to visit them. In the palace, you get the moongrass. In the mine, you get ore to upgrade your weapons. In the Tower of Latria, you get spice for magic. And the Shrine of Storms, you get a lot of souls from enemies to level up and spend however you will. So I think it's interesting that from the start, they give you reasons to visit all the different areas except the swamp.
See, I thought that was
Yeah.
super interesting because I first started playing, I had access to, the first part of every single one of those worlds.
Yeah.
I was, you find some more powerful weapons depending on which world you went to. I found some
Yeah.
like magic falchion thing in one of the worlds. I'm like, this is a hell of a lot better than the thing I got in
Yeah.
the other first part of the other worlds.
It's done better later because as none of us like the warping, I don't think. But,
Yeah, if you don't mind, I was just going to interject. Like, this is actually one aspect of Demon Souls that I hated. Like, by hated, I should say, I should back up, that every Dark Souls game did better. Was what I don't like about Demon Souls is it does feel like a Mario game.
Yeah,
where
yeah.
You're in
World
like
1-1.
World 1, World
Yeah.
2, World 3, World 1-1. I don't like it at all. Like, I just felt like I was beating level to level.
Yeah.
That's what, then I should say, like, I think most of us in here played Dark Souls 1 first.
Yeah,
And
I was a
then-
little bit more forgiving because of
yeah,
that.
yeah, exactly. So my first experience was Dark Souls, and then I played Demon Souls right after.
Yeah.
And something I couldn't shake was like I felt very like disconnected from the experience because
Yeah.
of how video gamey it is to warp into
Yeah.
worlds. It's very very disconnected.
Yeah, I don't want to get too far ahead into
Yeah,
level
sure.
design, but I want to say the ring system in this game is really cool. There's
Yeah.
quite a few different rings, and I think that just kind of gets better as the games go on. I mean, the trade-offs because you only get 2 ring slots.
Yeah.
Even though you have 10 fingers. I don't know.
That's I know. What's interesting that you say that is I almost felt like rings kept getting better, but then they I felt like in Dark Souls 3 they took a step back. But we'll talk about Dark Souls 3 later.
Yeah.
But
So that was I mean, it's probably not the first time it happened in an RPG, but it does stand out to me.
Where you
as
can't wear
interesting- Well, that too.
10 rings of favor and protection, please.
Yeah, please sign me up.
Yeah.
I would say that the enemy design in this game is pretty good in terms of how fair the AI is. Like they act like they appear to, that they should. That if you have a big lumbering enemy, they're not gonna like, stun lock you.
Right,
They're gonna move and behave. There's a boss that has a huge sword and he can only swing it like so fast. Like he's
right.
He doesn't lock. Nobody locks onto you, I don't think. They have some interesting and unique attack patterns compared to other action RPGs of the time. It seems to be like there's a lot of thought that went into.
Well, I was also going to say, like, as much as like I want to like hammer Demon Souls for things that the rest of the series did better, it is the first one.
Yeah.
So I feel like my general consensus of this game is it was like a very nice first start.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a good way to like to kick this franchise off. Like something that what's I always have to kind of like be measured where, because I played Dark Souls first. Another thing with Demon Souls, if we're talking purely items, you can't upgrade your armor in this game either. What you get is what you get. And so it didn't feel as customizable to me because it purely like isn't. Because you have your armor set that you have at the beginning of the game. You might wear a new set later, maybe. And that's all you get.
Yeah.
So when that's expanded upon later as well in other games in the franchise.
Yeah, I was going to talk a little bit about the messaging system.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
Yeah.
This kind of sets up how it goes for the rest of the series, where if you want to leave messages for other players, you have a limited amount of phrases. Like you can't just type out like you're an asshole.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I wish I could type whatever
I mean, people get pretty creative with like sticky white stuff in this game.
Was there a predecessor to Tri-Finger Butthole?
I think that was it. Sticky
that
white
was
stuff is like the magic item, and you can leave that as a sign.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know. It's unique. You get invasions and summons in this game. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I think I'm gonna move on to presentation here.
Yeah.
It has aged poorly. Demon Souls. I think that goes without saying.
It looks very like Play-Doh-y. Very
Yeah. But the actual art direction in all these games is really spectacular. Like the concepts, some of the vistas are really good. The use of color is really interesting. Something I find interesting about Demon Souls is that it doesn't feel like a Western medieval setting. It feels like what's that game that came out recently that you want me to play?
Oh, Kingdom Come Deliverance?
Yeah. It feels a little bit more like that, like the Bohemian, Eastern European kind of vibe. I think that's, for a first game, that's bold. Like, that's like if you're going to do a fantasy game, you're probably going to think of, like, the classic Western medieval, like... Right.
I think something that, we should mention is I think what's very maybe unique about, maybe not anymore, but when Dark Souls and Demon Souls came out, it surprised me that it was a Japanese game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it to me, it plays... he loved Oblivion, like you said, so I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
Where, like, he wanted to make a Zelda Oblivion game where everyone is miserable.
Yeah.
But it was surprising to me when I played the game, like, this is made by a Japanese developer, and especially when it comes to the setting.
Yeah.
Too.
I didn't know at first, but then when I found out, it made a lot more sense. When you see some of the weirder enemy designs and stuff, it's like, okay, this is out of Japan.
Yeah.
The cutscenes all are really well directed. They move very cinematically. It's something you kind of take for granted, as considering this is like the time of Resident Evil 5.
Oh God!
like think about like the games of the age.
Mm-hmm. And I do have to think about that too. Like, what came out in 2009? I don't know.
Nothing that I remember fondly.
Yeah, nothing that I remember fondly besides this game.
Yeah. The sound design is really good in all these games.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about the Tower of Latria, the scary area.
Yep.
There's like the bell ringing and the guy screaming from his cell. And the lady singing.
And we brought up earlier,
stuff.
If you're in soul form, your footsteps are quieted.
Yeah.
As well, which is interesting.
The music is an interesting aspect because in almost all these games, you only hear music in very special areas or when you're fighting bosses.
Yeah, I was gonna say Demon Souls. There's no music in generally most of it, right? Just a boss or a special area. I wasn't exactly sure.
It's like Dark Souls 1 where it has to be like the Nexus has music.
Mm-hmm.
The end game has music, but other than that, it's only boss music.
Right. Yeah. So I was just gonna say, I don't mind, but sorry, but I don't want to interrupt, but I think what's interesting about maybe game audio design in general is there is an aspect to using silence and using nothing as music.
Yeah.
Where like the only sound effects in a lot of areas of a lot of these games are your footsteps, clanks of weapons, and enemies clanking and walking around.
It makes you feel a certain way.
It does. There is an importance to not. This is almost goes against my music philosophy. Like there is some value in there not being a theme to hum in most of the areas of these
But think
games.
about it also in the micro sense.
Yeah.
In a song, rests are equally as important as notes.
Right.
So it's the same.
It's kind of like white space, but with music.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice too, though, just because like the significance of like having music strictly for bosses and special areas kind of like adds to the gravity of those events.
That's true.
absolutely.
That's a really good point.
100%.
It makes it like when I first jumped into this series, I noticed that where it's like, oh, I only get like an OST for like a boss or like a certain event, and that's like it just makes it everything more satisfying, basically.
Yeah, and I think the boss themes of this particular game are some of the best in the series. If you listen to exclusively the soundtrack, they're all very like they've created melodies that are super memorable. It's not the same composer in all 6 of these games.
I didn't know that.
They change. I'm not sure how it breaks down, but I know it's not the same person. But this game, I think, has a really formidable soundtrack. The bad ending of this game might be my favorite of all of these games.
Interesting.
It has a really, really compelling song.
Tower Knight fucking slaps, by the way.
Tower Knight.
It's a banger. It's undeniable.
Tower Knight.
Like generally across the series, the music is pretty good.
Yeah.
Honestly, for every single game.
It's interesting, like, to say, when it comes to video game soundtracks, I always feel like I'm always very tough on this stuff.
Yeah.
Where I can't deny, like, Zelda. When we compare Dark Souls to Zelda, the one thing that jumps out to me is I can hum every song from Zelda. I don't know what any of the Dark Souls songs are.
Yeah.
I know none of them.
Yep.
And the thing about Dark Souls is it does have value where it's so dark and miserable and open and lonely the whole time. Maybe I don't want it.
Yeah.
But it almost sometimes it's hard to theorize this stuff, but sometimes I think, what if Dark Souls had more tunes that I could hum on top of it being the best game of the past decade? Would it have made it even better? It's hard to say.
I do have some that I can hum, but I want to say something that I noticed is that I tend to remember the ones that I have a harder time with.
Yeah.
Because you're spending more time in those boss arenas, and it's like,
Exactly.
oh, there's
Yeah.
that song. And this is a lot of the songs in Dark Souls 3 really grew on me because at that point, I was so experienced with the series that I was one-shotting a lot of these bosses, and I didn't remember the songs as well.
Yeah.
But, it's interesting how that kind of factors into how memorable the music is.
Yeah, I think Josh probably summed it up the best. I didn't really think about that, where because you get a lot of nothing all the time, when you hit a boss chamber and you actually are given something, and it really hits you in the face, it adds to the gravity of the moment.
Yeah.
100% agreed.
I remember going to Yargul for the first time, and you keep hearing Baby Chinos over the opera in the background. That's what I thought they were saying. It was just like Baby Chinos. And I was like, word, I can remember that.
Oh, word.
I am curious about how much influence that the games that Miyazaki directs that over the music that he has.
It's got to be hard info to find.
It's hard info to find because, but it is hand in hand with something else I want to talk about, where the way he gets his team to design things, he does not give them specific instructions. He said, like, he doesn't say, make me the Drake sword. You know what I mean? He tells them, create an item or a weapon or armor for this purpose. Like, I'll give you some background info, and then just show me what you got. And I think that's crazy. Like, because it's really like, use your imagination. Like, he's trusting his art design team to make these choices.
What I think is so funny about that is I feel like, then again, this guy doesn't give many interviews. I feel like I've heard so many stories of he gives us so much freedom, and also, no, you guys designed that all wrong. I have to go. I have to go do it again in another game. That does happen.
I mean, it's some of it might be time constraints, but that's it.
Hard to say.
Actually, quick question for you, because you know how a recurring theme in the series, with the exception of Sekiro, is having Moonlight Greatsword in some form. Is that in this game here?
Yeah.
Demon Souls?
Moonlight Greatsword.
Was this the beginning of it?
I forgot.
Yeah,
it
it's
is
in the game.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
For sure. I was so mad when it wasn't in Sekiro.
In Andy Sekiro.
Yeah, dude.
Okay, so let's get into the nitty gritty here, into the body of the game.
Yeah.
The premise is that you are hailed from a foreign land to stop the colorless fog, the white fog that is spreading throughout the kingdom of Boletaria. You're summoned there by the Monumental, who is a little Buddhist monk, and you find him eventually in the game, and he's one of like hundreds who are all dead. They're all he's just like sitting around all of them, and he says, I need your help. And it's weird because he lures you there, like the little prologue tutorial. It's a very effective tutorial sequence in this game. It introduces the concept of developer messages, which are, it's like the same as player messages, where they're just teaching you how to swing your weapon and all that kind of shit. But once you get to the end of it, you have an optional mini boss. You will probably die to it, but if you beat it, you get a couple extra goodies, and then you get punched to death by the dragon god.
Yes,
I remember that.
Wait,
So
either way,
yeah, this is awesome.
Either way, you have to die at the end of the sequence. So
because you have to get thrown to the Nexus, and if you beat the mini boss, which you're not supposed to, you get.
It's like it's later on. You run into it again. It's like a minor enemy, but it's tough. If you haven't, like, if you played Dark Souls 1, maybe you stand a chance. But if you haven't, you're gonna die.
Right.
Wow.
So it's pretty cool, but it's interesting that you're kind of being lured to your death either way.
Right.
Because the Nexus is it's populated by dead people.
Yeah, undead purgatory sort of.
Yeah. And when you die in this game, it says you died however the Nexus traps you. Yeah. And you have to, that's how you get back to the real world.
Right.
So that's kind of interesting. The Maiden in Black is a significant character. She's your level up person. She's blindfolded. I found this really interesting because they knew that their character design was weak, like their models, and they said the eyes were the worst part because they like it's very eyes are really important to character design. So they knew that you were going to be spending a lot of time with her, that she was one of the most important characters. So she has kind of this black shroud over her eyes.
That's hot.
So Miyazaki said, "Man, her eyes look terrible. I know. Give her a blindfold."
Right? Exactly.
No, I've got it. Cover it.
Yeah, right. Just cover it.
I don't think it's a blind. I think she has like patches over her eyes.
Yeah.
Something
Fucking
like
patches.
that. We'll talk about him in a bit. Yeah. But she is the beginning of many characters in this series who are your level up person that I forgive it in this game because I think it's fine. It makes sense that she says this little chant when you're leveling up, you're making your choices. I don't know if you remember that at all.
Yeah, is that, I could be mistaking the wrong Souls game. Is that something for the world to be mended?
Yes.
Is that her? Okay.
And it's really nice.
Yeah, it's very nice.
But I much prefer what they do in Dark Souls 1, where you can just level up at bonfires anywhere and everywhere.
Mm-hmm. It just makes it less video gamey.
Yeah, with this one you have to come back, and a couple of the other games you have to come back to the hub and do your leveling up.
Yep, you have to go talk to the hub girl to level you up, right?
Yeah. This game, the levels, they often reward exploration. You get a lot of cool weapons and rings and everything, and this is something that the later games do to varying degrees of success. Yeah. Where, some game I've played a lot of games recently where I go and I go try and find, I'll go off the beaten path a little bit, and then you get fucking nothing. Right. It's it's really nice that these games they make it worth it.
No, I was going to say
except Sekiro.
Yeah, we will get there.
Yeah. I was just a couple hours from now, man.
Yeah,
sorry, I'll save it.
Yeah, button that up for now. I was just going to say one of the first appeals of this franchise, and it started with Demon Souls, is I want to go off and get that little twinkly item and get killed, but I got it. Yeah, and I want to know what it is.
Absolutely.
And that was a big draw to dying in the game, but it's okay. I made a little progress.
Yeah. A lot of suicide run tactics where it's like, all right, I know I'm gonna eat shit at the end of this, but I'm picking up some of the best weapons along the way.
Yep.
This game introduces something that Dark Souls does as well, which is really good shortcuts.
Yes.
Because the way these games are laid out, there's checkpoints in each of them that take various forms. In this game, you travel to the other worlds via the Archstones, which are huge stone tablets that have inscriptions on them.
Mario 64 paintings.
Yeah. In the game, the little checkpoints that you get in each level are, I guess, fragments of those. They have a sword and a little rock. and in between those are bosses. So once you get to the next one, there is a boss right before it, and that's kind of how you chart your progress in all these worlds. There are usually obstacles in your way that are like in the first area of the Boletarian Palace. There is a huge portcullis gate that is in front of the first area boss. And once you progress through the level, you find the lever that opens that up and makes the path to the boss that much easier. Like you literally just have to walk forward and you're there. And that is something that this game does really well for the most part. There's an area later where I remember the boss run was really punishing, but I always appreciate that in these games when they do that well.
I mean, honestly, even though I only played this game for a few hours, that was pretty astounding to me. Like, wow, I've played other Souls games, other games in this series too before.
Yeah.
I played Demon Souls. Wow, it's really well done here.
Yeah,
even
the level design
I
is
think
great.
that level especially, well, then again, it is the first level. You probably should put forward a good first impression.
Yeah,
Also,
absolutely.
Right? But
Yep.
I do want to say that Dark Souls and the shortcuts, and you're trying to make some sort of progress. And God, where am I? And you pull a lever, and there's a ladder or something that brings you back. And the Dark Souls is a very circular, a world that builds upon itself sort of level design. I do want to say, but that's not like incredibly unique to this game. Like, I'm going to bring up Zelda probably frequently during this. It's in those games too.
Yeah.
Like, if you talk about Ocarina of Time and you go into the Lost Woods, you can find little points that take you right to the Zoras, right to the Gorons. It's all there. You can find those. I think that influence comes from there.
Yeah.
It's where the world is built upon itself in that
sure.
way.
I mean, even Resident Evil with the locked doors.
Yeah,
there's a lot of that going
true.
on. So it's just, I think it's a lot more, it stands out in this game to me a lot because it's a huge sense of relief where it's like, if you want to go and tackle a boss again after you die to it, you don't want to go through the whole fucking level again. You just want to go straight there. And some of them are better than others, but this game does it pretty well.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's interesting. This game, and most of the other ones use the white fog as a way to gate off parts of the level at times. Sometimes they never come back. I think that's kind of weird, where it's like it's always there for the bosses, but sometimes they gate off part of the level with white fog, and then I assumed that was like a loading thing, but when you go through it the first time, it never comes back.
Right. It's hard to say. It's probably with loading and RAM usage and having to load. It's probably a hidden loading screen more than anything else.
It's interesting that the way they use that. Illusory walls are featured in this game.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting concept that is used a lot in this series.
Yeah, what I thought when I ran into the first one ever, it was actually because it was from a player message that said, hit this wall. And I said, okay. And I did it, and I said, what?
Like, just gone.
And I know what was so awesome about that is I said, holy shit, what secrets did they hide in these games?
Yeah.
By doing that.
There is a lot of secret areas in these games.
And I do want to say about player messages and illusory walls and that sort of thing, it really allows the player base to connect with each other without the use of an online forum or a strategy guide.
Or your friend in the cafeteria at lunch.
Yeah, exactly. Or
My dad works
you talk
for
about
Nintendo.
Pokemon in first grade on the bus.
Yeah.
It's nice. It really builds on that like sense of community that like you mentioned earlier he was striving for with like the pushing the car up the hill type thing.
And let me say this too, like because I played Dark Souls and Demon Souls, when I went back and played Kingsfield, dude, I mashed X to try to find these walls. Like,
what did I miss?
And they're in those games too.
That's crazy.
And I remember, I won't talk about Kingsfield too much. I was really struggling in Kingsfield 4. Like I could not make any progress. I remember I found a rapier behind a wall, and I took that thing like through the whole game. And it's like if I did not find it, like it's all because of illusory walls.
Yeah.
It's so strange.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I really want to see the inside of Miyazaki's house now if he just has
illusory
walls
Wife is
everywhere.
Like, what the fuck?
People
Right
just
here.
like people falling down flights of stairs they didn't know were there.
Oh my god.
When you try to go upstairs to bed, the ball rolls down.
Oh my
Oh my god. Something that this game, a shortcoming of this game that I think is also in Dark Souls 1, I'm not sure how far it gets in the series, is that the player is often inhibited by tight corridors where your weapon will bounce off, but enemies don't have that restriction, so you'll get like stabbed through the wall with a spear. It's like, what the fuck? That shouldn't work.
I mean, I think because these games are awesome, the problem they have are technical issues.
Yeah.
Like that. Where
Occasional, very
occasional. Where Demon Souls, Dark Souls, all of them, where they tend to struggle is when Dark Souls has a very specific set of rules that you have to follow to succeed.
Right.
Where, enemies do a lot of damage, but so do you. Like, you countering and parrying, going up ladders, down ladders, but if enemies can hit you through walls, but you can't hit them, it breaks its own rules.
Yeah.
And that's when the game starts to break down.
It's like, it doesn't happen that often because there's not too many tight corridors.
I think what the game was trying to get at is they were trying to just make you not use the claymore the whole time, like use a stabbing weapon.
Sure, yeah.
But it just doesn't work because physics is hard.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, if it worked for both ways with like you and enemies, I think from a physics standpoint, it'd make a lot more sense.
Yeah.
It wouldn't
Be
be
fine
that
with that.
bad.
Yeah, that's if we're talking technical issues that mar the whole franchise, that's in all of them.
I mean,
Yeah.
did they expect you, maybe in Demon Souls, to use different weapons depending on the situation?
I don't know, but I do know that consideration was made where they wanted your weapon to bounce off walls. Like you can't like
it's in some item
do a swing.
descriptions.
Yeah.
So basically, they're saying like, "Hey, yeah, you lug around this big, heavy sword most of the time, but if you're in this tight corridor, you really should switch to
I was
a
gonna
lightweight
say,
weapon."
Nick, yes, because there's a boss where you have to.
Oh, in Demon Souls,
The flying boss, where like it's way easier if you have a ranged weapon.
That's true.
Yeah, where like if you can shoot crossbow bolts at these flying
Manta ray
manta
things,
rays, like
yeah.
it's much easier.
Yeah. So that's that's interesting. I mean, but some big weapons also have a thrust attack for the R2.
Yeah.
So that's a consideration as well. I don't know. It's just a minor gripe.
Yeah, I understand.
I think it's in a lot of these games.
Yeah, it's a tech issue.
This game is the only one until Andy Sekiro where you can jump over walls, and it doesn't. In this game, it doesn't prompt you. You just push forward.
you just do it.
and you hop over, and it's so weird.
pissed me off to no end.
I do need. I want to bring this up. I was going to bring this up earlier. I'm glad you brought it up now. That's an obtuse part of Demon Souls that makes no sense. Where like
I don't think it's ever mandatory, but
no,
it's to get items.
There are some levels in the game where if you walk up against a wall, your character will climb up it. But you can't climb up walls in any other game. In the Sekiro a little bit.
I know, but like some walls in this game that look like they can be climbed over can't be.
Yeah,
So it's
exactly.
very inconsistent.
Yeah,
but
it's
I don't-
inconsistent.
It's one thing I don't like.
I remember there was a very specific, I think it was in the jail. What's that level in Demon Souls where there's that giant arrow trap that shoots a bunch of arrows down a bridge?
Yeah, it's fucking sick.
Yeah, it's cool. But there's a very specific ledge in that where I was like, there's an item up there. I kept walking against it, and my guy lifted himself up. I said, "You can do that?"
Maybe tell people that.
Yeah,
right? That would've been nice
Because
to
there's
know.
no jumping in these games until Sekiro.
Yeah,
so
right.
it's weird to see that.
Well, you can like sprint and baby jump, but like
Yeah,
that's about
but
it.
I mean, dude,
platforming, really.
that's a Zelda trait again. It's context sensitive. Link will hop up on his own if you push up
Exactly.
against it.
Yeah.
But in Dark Souls or Demon Souls, it doesn't work.
Right.
No, it's
yeah.
very poorly done.
Yeah,
It just doesn't explain it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I would like to move into the areas themselves a little bit here, how pleasant or unpleasant they are. Something I really like about it that a lot of games do is the Boletarian Palace is the first area. There's, I think in all the areas, there's 3 parts. In Boletaria, there's 4. But what I like about it is that through difficulty, it encourages you to leave and come back in all the areas. That's really cool. You can't finish Boletarian Palace until the very end, until you beat everything else. I like that level a lot. This is the first time where there's like a dragon bridge.
yeah.
They use that in like every game in the series. I mean, some of them are better than others, but that's the first instance of that. The Tower Knight is absolutely amazing. That's a fantastic boss. It seems so ridiculous, but then when you actually, if you're patient and you pay attention to the environment, you take out the archers, it's like very like, oh, this guy isn't so bad.
I remember that was one of the I didn't get very far in this game. That was one of the bosses I did beat. All I remember is, Greg, you were watching me beat this boss, and I was like, holy shit, how the hell am I supposed to do this? You kept telling me, Nick, he's a baby.
He's a baby.
He's a baby, dude. Stop it.
He's a baby.
He's a baby.
This is baby shit.
And I did it.
Is
Yeah.
that where that originated
I
from?
think that might have been
Baby shit.
Yeah, he's a baby.
Mario baby shit. For our audience who hasn't played this game, the Tower Knight is, I think, the second boss in this area. He is this absolutely enormous giant, fully armored with a shield and a spear. He can cast spells at you. and he's surrounded by I think like 15 archer enemies, and they set this all up for you in a cutscene, and it's like, how the fuck am I supposed to do this?
Right.
But you can hack at his ankles, and he falls over, and it's a lot
Break
easier.
them ankles, boy.
Yeah.
It's interesting though, because that's intrinsic to a lot of the series where it seems really intimidating, but if you work at it, if you pay attention, you can succeed.
They reuse that a lot in this series,
Oh, yeah.
where you're in like a room. Oh my god, there's a bunch of enemies too. What do I do? Oh,
Yeah.
I can go up here and take them out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Tower Knight, for example, is almost like a straight up archetype for like One Reborn further down the road. It's
Oh yeah, it's
Same
like the
similar.
same setup.
Yep.
Yeah, the mine is awful. I hate that area.
I do too, dude. Honestly, the mine is a big one where there are so many tight corridors. It doesn't run very well.
Yeah,
the
that
guys with all the
sucked.
pickaxes.
Those guys, they're vulnerable to thrust attacks, but they're very hard to swing at. Like,
Yeah.
they don't take a lot of damage from that. It's like a lot of annoying enemies.
It's very, very annoying.
That is an instance, something I wanted to bring up with the NPCs in this game. If you aggro them, they are angry at you forever. There is no forgiveness at all, which is something they reverse in later games. I don't love this.
Yeah.
I think it's funny, but I don't love this. Also, when they die permanently.
And I think NPCs dying permanently as a feature is awesome.
Oh,
it's just
yeah.
not done incredibly well in this first try.
Yeah. A big instance, it's featured heavily in the Donkey video about this game, is the Filthy Man. That's his, that's his
God.
fucking name.
Wait, that's the official name for this character.
Filthy
is
Man.
The
Yep.
Filthy Man.
Well,
Yeah,
through a
it's
translator.
Well, yeah, there's also Filthy Woman, which I'll get to later. But Filthy Man is a shopkeeper. He sells you ore that you can't get anywhere else. And I think this is the one where Donkey is talking about how his business model sucks because he's past exploding mine carts and you have to roll down the side of a cliff.
Yeah.
And he's surrounded by these flying exploding bug enemies, and it's like, maybe don't put a shop there.
Right,
yeah.
In gameplay wise, like that's like, this guy can get attacked by the bugs and he'll be angry and he'll think you did it.
Right.
And it's
Wait,
like,
so even if the enemies aggro him, you
because
still
he's
get
gonna
the
try to
blame?
fight them, and it's like, no, what, are you kidding me?
Right. They just shouldn't have done this.
Okay.
It's rare, but it can happen. It's happened to me a couple times because he has like Shard of Firestone or something, and you can't get that anywhere else. And it's like, that's dumb. So that's an
Yeah,
aspect
the whole
of the
mining level isn't great.
It's whatever. Flame Lurker is a tough boss. And it's something that I want to talk about. The Archdemons, which are the final bosses of each of these areas, not all of them are successes, but a lot of them are really interesting. The one for the mine is not good. It's the dragon god from the intro. He's in the opening cinematic, and he's the one who punches you to death if you do well. He is a puzzle boss. And by that I mean, it's not that hard to figure out. You have to activate these two ballistas that shoot spears at him.
Yeah.
And then he dies.
Right.
And he is this huge, intimidating, ridiculous looking boss. And it's like, oh, that's all I have to do?
Right.
And
Is
it's,
he is he just showing out? Because I if I remember correctly, I saw some of the promo stuff for this, and like, is he like just chilling in the bottom of the mine? Like, is there any explanation?
he's like up to his waist in lava. He's kind of like that guy in Dark Souls 2, but he's bigger.
oh,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. What, the Ivory King?
Iron King.
Iron King?
Yeah,
I don't
whatever.
know.
But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just
The guy with the hole.
Yeah, it's disappointing because they really built up this encounter, and it's like, oh, that's easy. You know
Right.
what I mean?
It's kind of an ironic boss, but there are
Yeah.
a couple throughout this franchise.
There's a couple. The Tower of Latria, I think, is the strongest area in this whole game.
Yep.
It is the principal inspiration for Bloodborne. He said, I want to make an entire game that feels like that, and I think it totally succeeds in that respect. This level starts out in a prison. There are these guys wandering around with tentacle heads. They're called the Mind Flayers, and they ring their bells, and they can paralyze you, and they come up to you, and they like suck your brain or something.
Yep.
This whole area is full of bizarre shit like that. The second area, you get brought up by gargoyles, which is something they do in Dark Souls a lot. That you get brought up to this second area, which has a big like floating brain, which is very similar to the brain in Bloodborne.
Oh yeah.
So there's some visual cues that are kind of similar.
Does it have a similar kind of like environmental like hazard feel to it? That brain there. Like,
it's very gothic. There's a lot of Lovecraftian kind of.
But like walking
shit.
by it, like do you? Because you know with the brain that you mentioned from Bloodborne, how like it frenzies you as you're in.
Oh yeah, I don't think there are any effects.
Okay,
but it's a weird thing. The whole area looks bizarre. It's really uncomfortable to be in. It has maybe the most challenging boss fight in the game, which is the man-eaters.
Yeah, something that's that this series does throughout.
Yeah,
which it really changes my perspective playing Dark Souls first.
Yeah,
where there's something that we really I think should critique about this franchise is there is more copied and pasted content than you would think.
Yeah,
like
especially if you played this one, which no one else played.
Yeah, exactly. We'll talk about this when Dark Souls comes up next.
Yeah.
But Dark Souls actually copied a lot of features from Demon Souls. By features, I mean, you have the man-eaters, which kind of turned into the gargoyles in Dark Souls 1. That boss in Dark Souls is not that unique if you played the first one.
Yeah, I think this one stands out quite a bit also because the arena where you fight these guys is very small.
Yep.
And at first, like they're very aggressive, they're very fast, tough. You only fight one at first, and then when he gets down to half health, another one swoops in.
It's literally just like the gargoyles.
It's like, fuck. But it's so much harder. And it's like, it's a really climactic moment. A lot of people would say it's the hardest boss in this game.
Yeah.
After this, you fight probably the most interesting boss in this game, which is the old monk. Do you remember this part?
No.
You find this guy. He is a shriveled old, looking like a corpse guy who's on top of a throne of chairs, I believe.
Is this the one that looks like the worm lady from SpongeBob?
Maybe.
Like shriveled up one that's like, what are they selling?
Yeah, it probably is.
He probably looks like
Oh my
that.
God, yeah, I do remember this. Go ahead.
What's his build?
He has an enormous yellow shroud on his head, and what happens is, if you're playing online, you can't anymore because the servers are down.
Yeah.
But it will summon another player to fight you.
Yeah, so
And
it's like when they tried to do it with the Mirror Knight again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is really interesting because it's not like there are no covenants in this game. It'll just say if you're playing online and you want to invade, they might summon you for this encounter where his headdress will wrap around an enemy player character and you'll have to fight them. And the experience of this boss fight can be very, very different depending on who you're matched up with. I think that was probably the first time that had ever been done.
I mean, it had to have been where you're fighting a player versus a PvE boss, but it becomes a PvP boss.
Yeah.
For sure. I will say this, though. It's a cool idea, but you might as well just unplug your internet connection and not do it if you just want to get through it.
Well, if you want to get through it.
Yeah, I'm saying it's cool. It's very cool. But hey, man, if you just want to have an easier time, just unplug it.
I was about to ask, in terms of difficulty comparison, how's the PvE version versus the potential PvP?
It's just an
easy.
An NPC with claws, like
Yeah.
Wolverine claws, and it's like, all right, well, this is. Well, it would have been more interesting had they done. I think they do. Don't they do this in Dark Souls 3 in the DLC where they randomize the NPC fight? Yeah,
Yeah.
So that's an improvement where you don't necessarily get the same guy every time.
Yeah.
Maybe if they had more time, they would have done it. But I think the idea is really
It's a good first try. Here's the thing. It's cool, but it being practical, just unplug it.
if you want to get done with it, yeah.
Just unplug it.
Yeah, so that's great. The Shrine of Storms is incredible.
Yes.
I really like the look and feel of that whole area. This is one of those ones where the boss run is really punishing in the second part, where you're going down to the mummy guy.
Yep, 100%.
You have to go down all these flights of stairs. It's like
tough.
the shadow men are everywhere and they're trying to kill you. It's a pain in the ass. But
It is.
Otherwise, it's a really visually cool area, and it concludes with you fighting the Storm King.
I think this is the best boss.
It's
Storm
incredible.
King.
Throughout this level, you are harassed by the storm beasts, which are these flying manta rays that can shoot lightning.
These little
or something at
lightning
you.
magic at you throughout the level.
Yeah, and you'll just hear it in the distance. The Storm King is an absolutely massive version of this. I think doesn't he have a human face, and it's really
I
disturbing.
believe.
Wait, what?
Yeah, it's cool.
I'll show it to you later. It's bizarre.
God.
It's really disturbing looking. But you fight him in this big, open beach field, whatever. And in this field, you find the Storm Ruler.
Yes.
Oh.
Which is comes back later, which is really cool. But in this instance, it makes a lot of sense where the purpose of this sword is that it cuts the sky. So you are used like because he's flying around above you, and if you don't have a ranged weapon, you're shit out of luck.
Yep.
So if you use this sword, you will attack him by slashing through the sky. My friend played this game and through it was because of the equipment load. He couldn't pick it up because of the equipment load, and he saved and quit out. And when he came back in, it was gone.
Oh, wait, what?
Oh, that
sucks. Oops, because if you try to pick it up and you can't,
it just leaves.
And I mean it'll be there, but if you save and quit out, it won't.
Right.
So he had to go and level up his fucking archery so he could take down the Storm King. He's like, a couple hours later, it was done. But that is a flaw.
I know. We should correct though. By equipment load, you mean like item load? Because because we should be direct here. Demon Souls has an item load as well as equip load. You can't just pick it like in Dark Souls. You can pick up infinite items. You can have like 1 million swords in your inventory. It doesn't matter. Demon Souls, you could not.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's not a great thing, but I don't think it happened to a lot of people.
Sounds like an oversight, if anything.
No, they probably didn't expect you to just start quit in the middle of the boss arena.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
I just want to say, like, I thought it's got to be one of the best bosses in the franchise.
It's really visually exciting.
Where I remember when I did this for the first time, I hid in like one of the houses and I kind of shot the crossbow at all the little guys.
Right.
And then I picked up, is it Storm Ruler or Caller in this?
Storm Ruler.
It's Storm Ruler in this game. I remember I read the item description. It's so cool. It says something like this sword has lost its power, but it's only found in the forest. And what you realize is you're in the forest, but it's just destroyed.
Right.
So that's why Storm Ruler only works in this boss arena.
So cool.
It's really awesome.
It reminds me a lot of like a Shadow of the Colossus fight.
It's exactly what it felt like.
Grandiose and exciting.
I mean, that's got to be Miyazaki being like, "Oh, that was a good game."
He got into games because of Ico, however you pronounce
Interesting
it. But I'm assuming he's a fan of Shadow of the Colossus as well. So it's possible.
Great boss.
Yes. Lastly, we have the Swamp, which is a fucking nightmare.
Yeah, long boss runs. It sucks.
It's like if you've played Blighttown from Dark Souls 1, it's a worse version of that.
It gets worse. Yeah.
Was this the start of the Miyazaki trope poison swamp trend?
And it's very dark. There's a really shitty rain visual effect on it.
Oh no.
And it's I don't know. It's really it's a pain. It's a pain to get through. The bosses suck. The only interesting thing is the ending where you fight Maiden Astraea. Do you remember that at all?
Not really. I mean, all I remember is the boss runs were very long, and I couldn't think it could get worse than the Dark Souls poison area, but it's worse.
But it's worse.
Yeah.
The end of this. The end of this area is they really set up this character, Maiden Astraea, as like she's the archdemon of the whole swamp, the filthy woman. She maybe, I don't know if this is a localization thing, but she says that Maiden Astraea thinks she's the Virgin Mary, and I'm like, wait a second. Is this happening in like our world? Like, are they implying this is
Earth.
IRL? You know what I mean? So that's a weird little thing. But when you get up to her, you don't fight her. You fight her Knight Protector.
Oh, that's
His
right.
name is Garl Vinland.
Yeah.
He is like a tank.
Yep.
And he won't attack you unless you try to get by him. He just stands there, and so if you beat him, you get up to her, and she just kills herself.
Yep.
It's insane.
Yep.
That's so fucking cool.
I forgot about this because this is the one where it's at the end of the poison level, right? And I think you get the fluted armor set from him or in that area. I believe it's
with
that
the swamp of aborted babies.
Oh my god.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Which is, you never see that again.
Yeah.
Even in Bloodborne.
Actually, kind of close is right before Nito, the little baby skeletons that come up out of
that's true.
They're not I'm assuming it's not like tiny aborted skeleton babies,
They're
but like
just dead children.
just dead kids. So
It's
it's
the same vibe.
Those are both good.
Yeah,
much better.
Great stuff. Okay, getting into the end game here.
Yeah.
King Alant.
This is a cool boss too.
It fucking rules.
Yeah.
It's maybe my favorite boss of this game. It's a really good 1-to-1 sword battle with this guy, but his thing is that he can de-level you.
Yes, he can
drain your
like soul
level.
suck you and like, literally lower your level.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
It never happens again.
No,
in any
but
of
it's
these
like if you
games.
keep dying on this boss, he will keep leveling you down.
Oh, so it lasts beyond the fight.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
It's not. I thought it was just like
no,
an
you will
in-battle
permanently
type
lose a
thing.
soul level.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe I've read or seen video or something. People intentionally get their soul level lowered so they can min-max their character.
Okay.
From this
Interesting.
fight.
Interesting.
But I just
Yeah.
like that. What a weird thing for them to do. It lowers your maximum level if he soul sucks you.
That's a really like heavy duty way to I mean, this is not the last boss, but it
close.
is. And I don't know, it's a really fun fight. It's very like Artorias-y. It's very
Yeah.
one to
love
one. But after this, you get into the true end game, which is the Maiden in Black takes you down below the Nexus to lull the old one back to sleep, because that's the source of the colorless fog. And when you get to the old one, it's on a big beach below the Nexus, and it's a giant Christmas tree.
Yep.
Excuse
The
me.
Christmas tree ending.
And you laugh, but when you see it, it's a big Christmas tree like on its side, like someone's thrown it out.
No.
That's so sad.
Yeah, very
So
sad.
you go inside it, and the true final boss is the real form of this king guy that you just defeated. And he is this disgusting pile of sludge monster.
Yep.
Takes a few hits to defeat.
He's like an ironic boss.
just a
you just
meme.
swing at him a couple of times
And
and it's
Did
over.
they explain its origin at all? Like why he's a big pile of slime? Because it's
in their way,
Yeah.
where it's like it's hidden behind. Like his son is an NPC in this game, and he follows you through. He meets the false version of his father, and he's like really rattled by it, and he kills himself because
wow.
he's like, okay, that's not my
yeah,
dad.
that's the Golden Knight walking around Boletaria.
Strava is
yeah,
his name.
Yeah.
Yeah, really interesting NPCs. Old King Doran, remember him?
Yeah.
He guards a very powerful sword.
Yep.
He is super duper tough. Yurt, the Silent Chief, is the original Lautrec, but how he operates is a little differently. If you free him from his cage in the Tower of Latria, he goes back to the Nexus and he just hangs out, and he's like laughing, like he's just like, whenever you talk to him, he's like the original creepy Dark Souls laugh guy.
Yeah.
And if you leave him alone, because Lautrec later on, like he only kills one person. Yurt will kill every person in the Nexus.
Holy
What?
shit.
I didn't
Every
even
single
know that.
one. Like they played a little fair where the first bodies that appear are not named characters. Like they're just like randomly generated looking NPCs, and it's like, those weren't there before. So they played a little fair, but then he starts killing Stockpile Thomas, everyone except the Maiden in Black.
Is that scripted? Because when I beat this, no one died. Is that do you have to complete certain things in the game for him to kill people, or is it time?
I think it's time.
Is it time? Okay.
But he is, if you kill him, his boss shows up, and her name is Mephistopheles.
Oh, wow.
And she's like, hey, you want to do it? And you can.
Oh
and
my
she'll give
God.
you like spells and shit.
That's
It's
so
fucking
fucked
crazy.
up.
But I mean, really interesting NPCs. Before we wrap up this episode here, I want to talk about the cut content a little bit.
Yeah.
There was some planned areas outside the Nexus you're going to be able to explore that they cut out. There was a library level planned, which, as we all know, they saved for the next time, which is interesting.
Oh, I'm glad they saved it.
Yeah.
It wasn't that bad.
I like it.
It's all right.
All right, this is getting ahead of ourselves
Yeah.
here. But the big thing is in this game, there are 5 areas you can explore, the Archstones. There's a 6th one that is broken, and it's on your map. It's broken too. This was planned. There are relics of this in the game files, and it was called the Land of the Giants. It's mentioned in the opening level, and it's in the files are in the game of this. It looks a lot like the Frozen Dark Souls 2 DLC a little bit.
Fucking gross.
But imagine it was good. And there's a lot of cut enemies that are really interesting that are all like beast characters. Like there's giant werewolves and stuff and giant bears. And there's did I send you guys the gif of the owl enemy?
No.
It's really cool. It's like an owl man, and he has a little paintbrush and palette, and he can cast spells at you.
Weird.
It's things that you never see again in these games.
I'm just picturing
But they
like
cut
the
it.
They had
evil
to cut it,
version
yeah.
of that Animal Crossing owl.
Oh
Like
my
the one
God.
from
Oh
the
yeah,
museum.
From the
it's
museum.
identical virtually. But yeah, I would have liked to see. I'm assuming if it had come out a couple years later, they would have made it like a DLC or something. But interesting stuff. So, final thoughts between you and I on Demon Souls.
Yeah, Demon Souls. I always have to be measured when I talk about Demon Souls because I played it second.
Yeah.
It's a great first start for
Right.
this beast of a franchise that I now considered like it. This Dark Souls franchise is so good that every other game is bad.
Yeah.
But like it all started with Demon Souls. I don't like the Mario style level 1-1, 1-2, 1-3. It can be interesting where you can't do the final part of Boletaria Palace until you've beat other bosses.
Yeah,
And
that's cool.
It's cool, but it lends itself to being very video gamey.
Sure,
And
yeah.
I feel like I'm playing a game. I think Dark Souls improves upon Demon Souls in a couple of ways.
Yeah.
Where Demon Souls, you have the Nexus, you have your level up girl, but I do enjoy the more subtle aspects to Demon Souls, where I feel like other games in the franchise just didn't do it at all.
Yeah.
Whether its world tendency is a little obtuse, but it is interesting.
Yeah.
And also, the subtle sound effects of you being in soul form. I do want to say, like, it's a cool start, but one thing that does bother me about Demon Souls, that Dark Souls 2 does this as well, because you lose maximum health upon death, it
Yeah.
makes me not want to explore or take jumps off
Yeah.
cliffs to try to get stuff.
In this game, anyway, I kind of I put on the cling ring or whatever.
Yeah.
And I just kind of stay in soul form and just take that as
75%.
my max health.
Yeah, I understand. So there are some really cool bosses. There's some very cool, subtle, hidden stuff in Demon Souls.
Yeah.
It's so obtuse. I don't know how anyone found it.
Right.
But I mean, good for them for, I would say, Miyazaki going from Kingsfield that no one played to
Right.
Demon Souls, which no one played. But
Yeah.
actually getting the action franchise off the ground. I feel like if I were to sum it up, it's a good first start, even though I don't really like it.
Yeah.
I guess in particular.
The fact that he somehow found success from this is insane when everyone else was going to consider it a failure.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things where if you have played it, like you get a little bit of indie cred, you'll be like, there's not a lot of Demon Souls memes.
Excuse me, you beat Demon's Souls, right?
Demon's Souls.
I mean, also
yes.
the name is bad because it's too hard to
We
say.
know.
Yeah.
We've moved past it.
We've moved past it.
It's lower end for me, but I still like it a lot. I don't know. I've played it 3 times through.
Yeah.
I will probably play it again, but it's yeah.
I was just gonna say if they made a remaster similar to the Dark Souls.
I was
one,
gonna say
would
they
you
should.
do
They
it?
really should.
It's a game that would deserve one.
Maybe they include that last Archstone. Maybe they polish up some of the areas. I think they asked him about it fairly recently, and he said it's kind of Atlas's call. And yeah, that's how I feel. I mean, you guys should play it if they do that.
I'll beat it eventually.
Someday.
I will. I swear. I swear I'll go back and play it.
If the opportunity comes up with a remaster, I'm in. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, sure.
All right. So join us next episode for our discussion of Dark Souls 1.